Happy Friday, Mia. It's 2021.
Hey Liz, how you doing? I'm really excited because I've invited some of my friends today. I want you to introduce them, and they're going to be talking a little bit on what they think about communications in 2021. And they're all experts in email, and I've known them for a really long time, and this is advice that we should all be taking. So I thought it would be good to invite them. We've got Dela Quist, we've got Phelan, Cath Pay and Andrew Bonar, and I know that we're going to be asking each of you what your views are on communication in 2021, but feel free to give a little intro on who you are, because we'd love our audience to know exactly who you are and follow you and see all the great things that you have to say.
And I heard that everyone's in a different place in the world. So I definitely want to know where each of you are so we can get quite jealous.
Excellent.
Why don't we go ahead? Let's start with Kath. Tell us a little bit about you, where you are, and then what is your advice for 2021 as far as communications go?
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm in Antigua, hence why there's my wind, my hair is blowing a bit because it's hot here and I've got a fan on.
No one hates you at all right now, Kath.
So I've been in email now for over 21, almost 22 years. I've just written a book, and I am incredibly passionate about email still, even after 22 years. I think it's a great channel. And one of the things that I think works best for communications, particularly here, I've been talking about this for years and years and years, but it's even more relevant now with COVID. 2021, we're kind of going, oh, what's going to happen and everything. And that really is about being customer centric. I know it's going to sound like a cliche and everything, but I truly am, because I work with a lot of brands and they're just sort of coming out. And I noticed this with all the Christmas and holiday messages and everything. They were kind of like just churning it out. So there was lots of volume going out, but there was no specific strategy behind it. And I think that's a huge missed opportunity, because, everyone is sitting, working from home or on furlough or whatever the case is. And I guess we're all a little bit more, I don't want to say selfish, but we're all very aware of our situations. We're very aware about us and everything. So I think that we as brands need to be understanding that and changing our communications accordingly. And sometimes it's just a matter of, you don't need new technology, you don't need more budget or anything. It's literally a case of going, how can I help my customers, the people who are on my list, to actually achieve their objective? Why did they subscribe in the first place? And if you start to be thinking about them, their needs, why they're on the list, and then you start to be configuring everything so that it's all about them, right? Rather than we have a sale, that kind of stuff where it's very brand focused. You start changing the wording so it's all about them and the benefits that they can achieve from actually taking advantage of the sale. So things like that, I think that for me is the biggest one. And of course, coming in that with the whole customer-centric sort of umbrella comes, the empathy and everything as well. But it really is a case of just go in and having a look at your copy, have a look at what it is that you want to achieve with that particular email, and then say, okay, how can I make this more customer-centric and less brand-centric? Because remember, we're a push channel. And the fact that we're a push channel means that we have the honor and the privilege of pushing our messages. And that often ends up being that we are pushing our messages and they end up being very brand centric, because we're pushing towards our KPIs. But at the end of the day, if we help them to achieve their objective, then we end up achieving our objective, which is get them to buy or download or whatever the story is. So I guess that would be my main tip.
Love that. Love that, Kath. Be customer centric. Thank you so much. Andrew, how about you? Where are you, and what would you tell everyone today they need to focus on in 2021?
Oh, Andrew's on mute.
And that's the catchphrase for
Oh.
our generation.
I'll give him 5 seconds, shall so it's Andrew and Fatima in Spain, and I think, echoing a lot of what Kath said, it really, the rules for 2021 aren't that much different since, from 2020 or any other year. Some of those rules are more, the benefits of them are more obvious, but I think, excuse me, I might get shot, but I think, if you go all the way back to, before even the 80s and go back to Gary Halbert, all of those rules about, focusing on the customer apply as much then as they do today. But you need to be much more aware of your client, and there's a much more, there's Black Lives Matter, the recent events, horrific events in the US, and other things, just bring to bear the polarized feelings that people have, not just in the US, but across the world. And you just need to be, I think, a little bit more sensitive to people's thoughts and feelings, and how you might be stepping on toes. And if there's an easy way to avoid that, then that's probably a good thing to try and put into practice in 2021. And just being aware of people's accessibility needs, people's, if you have a platform, how you make that platform accessible to the entire community, basically, and that covers all manner of things. But I think social conscience is something that's coming to the fore in 2021, and brands need to take that on board, and I think it's a good thing.
I could not say it better. Social responsibility, right, needs to be a focus this year. Absolutely. So Dela, what do you think is your big thing for 2021?
Oh,
and where are you?
Well, so first of all, I'm in London, and it's cold and dark, but then it is nearly 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm in London, founder and CIO of Alchemy Works. I just about get to be known by one name, so you don't need my surname, just Dela will do. If I'm to summarize what's going on in 2021 from the perspective of Alchemy Works, I would say audience management. And what does that mean? To what I think both Kath and Andrew have spoken to, and I suspect everyone else will, is thinking about customers. But for me, that means engagement. You drive engagement, which drives loyalty, which drives revenue. So it's in that order. And I'm not going to preach about whether you should or shouldn't start with revenue. That's neither here nor there. I think that the things are related, and you need to bear that in mind and take that into account. Why audience management? What's different from what's going on today? Most of people that we meet or are introduced to as potential clients are pretty good at segmentation and targeting, right? Even up to micro-segmentation, hyper-segmentation, call it what you will. They're really, really pulling very, very tight lists on a regular basis. And yet the irony is, most of the people we get engaged with start out with a position where at least 50% of their list hasn't engaged with them for 12 months or so. It's sometimes as high as 60, 70% even we've seen. I've seen 80%. And that's despite the work they're doing on segmenting and targeting. That number actually hasn't changed a lot in recent times. And that's one of the things we're focusing on, is how do we get back to a place where you have more people that are engaged with your program than are not. And one of the ironies about a list that has unengaged people on it, the acquisition cost of the unengaged is the same as the acquisition cost of the engaged. So it's not just the missing revenue opportunity, it's actually a wasted expenditure. So you bought them They've come onto your list for whatever reason. And when I say bought them, acquisition, they bought from you once, maybe twice, they came to your website, they signed up, and yet they disengage with you. That cost doesn't disappear the day they disengage. And that's what our focus is. And what's the difference between segmentation and audience management? Audience management means thinking about the whole. And I'll give you 2 places that not enough work is put that we focus on very much. And that is understanding how long people stay engaged, right? It's not like you have engaged people and unengaged people. People engage for a while and become unengaged, and then they re-engage again. It's the same person. And at one place in the year or the 5-year period you're looking at them, they may be unengaged, and in another place they're very, very engaged. The question is, how long do they stay in each bucket? And if you can extend the time people are engaged from, say, I don't know, pick a number, 180 days to 200 days, that's a big difference, because it slows down the attrition of your engaged file. And the reverse is also true. If people typically spend 6 months or 12 months or whatever the time is in the unengaged, if you reduce that by 20 or 30%, you're doing 2 things. You're plugging the hole at the bottom of the bucket, and you're pouring more in at the top. And that's the difference between audience management and segmentation. Segmentation really is about, this is what I have, and I'm pulling the list and I'm running the list, but it's not actually thinking about why they're in that list. Why are they engaged? How are you going to keep them there? And so I just think that this year is going to be the beginning. There's a lot of tech that makes it easier to do that now. A lot of our clients have moved to CDPs, and it becomes easier to do that. It still requires quite a lot of hand-holding to walk through that process. And so I don't think it'll happen in a year, but I'd like to sort of have a conversation in a sort of 18 months to 2 years time and say, on average, 65% of people's lists are engaged and not less than 50. And that's going to be a big difference. It's a swing of 30%. It's very doable. You just have to want to do it. And over the next 12 months, I'll be talking a lot about how people can do that themselves.
I'm looking forward to that. And you schooled me on audience management just now, so I want to learn more.
Too kind.
Thank you. Ryan, what would you say is your big thing for 2021, and where are you?
Where am I? I am in Dallas, Texas, currently in the world. So, and just like London, it's kind of cold and dreary here. But I think for 2021, what I'm looking for is what I'm calling sophisticated agility. Let me demonstrate it this way. Prior to COVID, I'm the home chef. I go to the grocery store all the time. I pick my vegetables, I pick my meats, I pick fish, and all that stuff. And I thoroughly enjoy going to the grocery store. And back before COVID, I used to go weekly to 3 grocery stores to get everything I needed for the week. Then COVID hit, and I'm living with my in-laws. And they moved in June. So guess what I haven't been able to do? Go to the grocery store. So I've had to rely on Instacart. Now, I've never used Instacart before. It's anathema, because that means I can't pick out my own vegetables, my own stuff. But my behavior has gone from being in the store on a regular basis to being on Instacart. Now, according to my local supermarket, they think I've disappeared because now I'm buying through Instacart. So what this agility and the sophistication is the next chapter. As globally we start seeing vaccine come out, people start to get out, and people start to have freedom and go back to what they used to do, our models and our look at the customer behaviors are going to change in a very fluid manner. I'm not going to go back to 100% in the store. I'm probably going to go back to 75% in the store, and when I don't want to go to the store, I'm going to use Instacart for the last 25%. My 2 questions are this: is the supermarkets going to recognize that I've done that? Is Instacart going to recognize that I've done that? Are they going to change their targeting to accommodate that? And are they going to emphasize the things that I regularly get, knowing that I've gone to a balance, right? And that takes a lot of sophistication on the marketer side to, number one, have multiple models, because we're also going to go through a rolling vaccination of people. And so you're going to have groups of people go out into the world, right? So we're going to have a very fluid model for the customer over the next 12 months and longer globally. And so my hope for communications is that it really does get agile and it becomes very sophisticated in being able to deliver all the things all of my friends have been talking about. And this relevancy and this message, does it really equal what is going on in the world and what's going on with the individual? That's my thought for what I'm going to be watching.
And I think, Ryan, that you've hit the nail on the head of many discussions Mia and I have been having. The world has changed and everything has to change going forward. So really appreciate your thoughts on that, and look forward to expanding the conversation. So Mia, now with all of that, in 30 seconds or less, what's your big thing for everyone listening today in 2021?
I echo what everyone else has said, and I know that we've been talking about relevancy in communications for many, many years, but never has it been more important than this year. If we're not relevant in understanding the customer, understanding the situation, understanding why they're online or why they're not online, as Ryan mentioned, if we're not relevant in our communication, we're dead in the water. The client will move to a company that is far more relevant and understands it.
Awesome, Mia. And I'll leave everyone today with the world has changed and so do we. So let's make our communications better. Let's reach our customers in a way they want to be reached. And with that, let's have a happy and wonderful 2021.
Woohoo!
Okay.